boss, this is the limit and you don't cross the limit, please.
I'm like, what rubbish, मतलब कुछ भी बोलोगे क्या? Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Almost Parivarik. This is me, Nishtha, and these are my parents. And so, hi.
Hello.
So guys, today we are going to talk about boundaries in relationships, which is something that is quite important in families. And I just want to know, like, how is it for you guys? Do you think we as a family are good at setting boundaries or not? Like, what is your opinion about that? To get started with.
No, I guess as a family, we give each other really a good space. Uh, like we don't once we understand the criteria of a person, what he actually requires, we think over it and then we give a freedom of the decisions. So like it is your decisions, and you have to take every call of it. Then
What do you think?
Slowly and gradually we understand the independent and real space, the importance of that freedom. And unless and until you respect that, understand that freedom of individual space, I don't think you understand really the boundaries. We as a family initially were not giving that spaces earlier, but over a period of time when we started understanding, this concept started coming in. Always respect the freedom of an individual. So it takes time to understand. I think this generation is understanding already.
So I also feel like the concept of boundaries is very new to people your age, and that's why it's more difficult to understand for you guys, because you could never communicate openly.
no, it's not that in our generation. In our generation, there were many people who actually, they did not have their boundaries. Like I've seen a few people who are my friends. So it depends upon family to family. It is not that your generation, but in our generation, it was less.
Yeah, it is quite
It was
less
less.
because you people seem lost when, like, I've spoken to people your age, and when I talk about boundaries, not a lot of people understand what I'm. They're like, what does that even mean? Like, what is boundaries? We don't know. We have never heard this term before, so it's very difficult to understand what this term means to a lot of people. Is what I've noticed.
Yeah, because I understand this because of I feel everything is defined by boundaries. Because this entire world, that works with law of limitations. Everything you go on the road, there are law of limitation for the speed. There are local laws, law and order. Then everything like you go for eating, you go for talking, you go for the school. Everything, every space has got their boundaries and limitation sets. And there are certain freedoms also in every area. And I think that needs to be understood very well. Unless you don't understand that limitations, you tend to create in certain way crimes or problems if you cross that boundaries. So crossing boundaries means always a problem
So
or
how do you communicate with if there is a ex person who's testing your patience and you've already said communicated something to a person that do not cross this line. This is a line that I've drawn and you're not supposed to cross it. What if a person does not understand that and he or she tries to you know keep crossing it or does not respect it? How do you handle such people? How do you tackle such people?
that is warning. Simple way. Communication has to be strong from your side. You need to say very clearly, boss, this is the limit and you don't cross the limit, please. So there are certain ways, humbly, very maturely you can say. If even if he is not ready to listen to you, then you walk off. And third way is you start arguing and you start to cross your boundaries. That is the third way. But better to walk off and then not to indulge into that person again. That's what I feel.
So do you think, like, because a person is not respecting your boundaries, they deserve to not be in your life?
Yeah, if the disturbance is too much, then it is always very annoying. And secondly, that relation really doesn't matter at all. If
Because the other
somebody's,
person is not respecting.
yeah, it's he's not, he or she is not respecting.
In any relationship, respect is important.
Yeah.
And as a man, do you think it's difficult for men to communicate their boundaries?
No, it is a male dominant society for years. So male, I had problems personally because of my upbringing, but males generally I don't see any problem communicating their boundaries or their likings, their not liking, and they even are very clear. They don't allow female counterpart to do what they don't like. So they have very clear. They have been very clear from years together or maybe generations. I had this problem because uh, even I am born and brought up in a lower middle class family. We had been set up with the boundaries by our parents, and because of that, there was an underconfidence as a male. So we were never used to allowed to talk to the girls next door or ladies. So that confidence was not there. So because of that, maybe I was not that kind of a male who was a male chauvinist kind of person. So, but that helped me out understanding or balancing, by the equilibrium of male and female problems we have in the society. Nowadays, it is getting, gap is getting solved or gap is getting lesser. But earlier it was too much. It was too much. Like girls were not allowed to step out of the house after 7 or before they have to come home. They're not allowed to talk to boys. Unfortunately, we were not allowed to talk to girls.
So these are, I would say, boundaries that are set by families for their children. But as people growing up, personal boundaries are something that has really become important for our generation. And, that's what we've been seeing around, that people are more vocal about how they feel, what they like, what they dislike. Okay. And, like, it's also making people extra sensitive. So what is your, like, how do you perceive younger people, like, do you think they're extra sensitive about themselves and their emotions, or do you think that's it's important to be taking care of your boundaries?
No, it's correct because nowadays I think every individual like your generation they're understanding the boundaries and they set their boundaries and they understand they understand the value of freedom and they understand that they are not allowing anybody else to cross the limitations while behaving with them. Yeah. So they know where to stop, when to stop. So it is a good thing. In our time, maybe we were not aware of. We were more of scared because time had changed. There was a time when this gang wars in Bombay, and there was time when we have seen people fighting with swords and the guptis and knives in the hand. I have seen that kind of situation in front of me in 75 and 80s that is happening. But nowadays things are quite safer and people are outspoken. Social media is active, so they know how to take care of everything, and everybody is watching. Somebody is watching, so every individual knows the limitations and boundaries.
And I guess even like boys have become a little sensible in the sense, like they are also trying to respect women in much better way.
Like, usually the men would not respect boundaries that the woman in the family has set, and they would
That may be
always
happening in the cosmopolitan city.
uh
There are too much area to be worked out.
yeah, because, like,
Yeah, I'm
generally,
talking about the boys who are staying in city
no,
and
that's
are
a different thing,
education.
but like how he
So that
mentioned,
is,
that is not something that I thought about at all. That, that's a male dominant society, and for years together, men have been overstepping the boundaries that a female would have tried to set, and that's an interesting perspective to hear, I would say, because that's not something that even crossed my mind, because that's not something that, like, yeah, sure, like there might be instances where people have, like,
yeah.
crossed my boundaries as well, but I think now we are vocal enough to say that this is not done, this is not fair. So that thought didn't cross my mind, that okay, there are several people in the world living where their boundaries are constantly being overstepped or ignored or disrespected by other people.
Yeah, many like.
Yeah. Hmm. Right.
What do you think about our generation and about your generation? You may have come across with your professors, your other colleagues, who are older to you, including us, your neighbors. What do you think about? What is your opinion?
No, I mean, I feel that, like I said before, not a lot of people know how to process it once I have said something and I am strongly opinionated about something that I do not like this and you are not supposed to do it. Not a lot of older people understand that, okay, she's like serious and like we are not supposed to do it, because a no means a no. And if you're going to ask me to do something while I'm already told you that I'm uncomfortable doing it, I'm not going to do it. That doesn't mean that I do not respect the other person, but these are my boundaries and you're not overstepping them. And I feel like a lot of older people do not understand that. Like that concept does not revolve around, like it's new to them because they think that, oh, she's like उल्टा बोल दिया क्या,
हाँ
डिसरिस्पेक्ट,
जबरदस्त
एरोगेंट है, like she's
माँ बाप ने
arrogant,
सिखाया
माँ
नहीं है
बाप ने
कल्चर
सिखाया
नहीं है
नहीं है, हाँ कल्चर नहीं, then they give nonsense like संस्कार नहीं सिखाया and all that. I'm like what rubbish, मतलब कुछ भी बोलोगे क्या?
no there are examples in our families also they can speak anything being elderly they can poke into anybody's they can body shame they can talk
Yeah, like the
rubbish
first thing when you meet
but
somebody is
if you
like, अच्छा
reply back
मोटे हो गए, अच्छा आप पतले हो गए, ओहो कितने काले हो गए हो. Like who gave you the right to say that in the first place? Like this is not me being oversensitive or what, but at least be mindful of what's coming out of your mouth. Like instead of asking a person कि आप कैसे हो, how have you been this while, what have you been doing, what's up in your life, you will start like pinpointing what's wrong with you. And I don't think that that's nice, and that's supposed to be communicated that no. See,
Like,
there are all types of people in this world.
yeah, yeah.
And yeah.
There are some grandparents who are so chill.
Yeah, so on the
Because
contrary, there are people who like completely adjust to the newer generation. They
yeah,
try to learn more.
I've seen many of my, we have a very big group in our society, and I've seen grandparents, and they're so chill with their granddaughters, grandson. They, they even do dance together. She dress up like the way the grandchildren really want. I'm not saying she'll wear a skirt and all that, but the lady who's into sari will come up with, a jeans or a salwar kameez, a grandparents, So that's really very lovely to see such grandparents. They're accepting the
Yeah,
youth
they're more
generation.
open
They're
and
open. And
understanding
education
of.
do matters, all these things.
So coming to communication and how all of this like really depends on communication or whatever. Like one thing is saying on the face, but like I feel like with social media being there and with texting and all of that, like sending voice notes or whatever, there are different ways of communicating what you feel. So if I'm a bad like talker, like if I can't communicate my feelings properly by talking, I can use texting. So do you think like social media has helped this whole?
This social media is definitely amazing, but when it comes for communication, I always feel it should be one to one, because what happens sometimes in text, what you write and what are your thoughts may not be considered by the person who is reading it. The person who is reading it can again misunderstand you. So, a social media, hats off. But when it comes for communicating your feelings, whether good or bad or likes or dislikes, whatever, it has to be one to one.
I agree. Yeah, makes sense.
Text is
no I feel the same because social media is given a good platform to communicate but I think there's a difference between communication and conversation so we are lacking a conversation because of the communicating equipments we have. It is good to communicate, to inform, to give information that I am here, I'll be late, I'll eat out. The common communications is good on social media like WhatsApp, on Insta or whatever. But if you need to express your true feelings, emotions, then that cannot be conveyed through the gadgets and technologies. Gadgets and technologies are dead. They're emotionless. So human being one-to-one conversation, not communication, conversation is important with feelings and otherwise there are always chances if you try to communicate emotions through the emojis whether somebody will understand the emojis, what kind of emojis are where, You don't know. Half of the people doesn't know which emojis. So all this short message texting is like, creating more confusion and more doubts. So that creates area where there lack of communication again.
So if you had to create a healthy boundary today, say between the three of us, how would you do it? Like for example, if I have to set a boundary, like for example, if I don't want uh, you to disturb me while I'm working. For example, I am working, and while I'm working, please don't disturb me. Or so I'm going to communicate it by saying, listen guys, like when you come and disturb me every 15-20 minutes, if you are doing that, uh, please don't do it, because my flow is broken and I would like that I am given my own space while I'm working, because I don't like to be disturbed. Unless there's something urgent, then you can, come and tell me that there's something urgent and I am needed there right now. This is how I would
No, actually, I think the question should be some other way around, because as per like we are concerned, and you are very frank enough to give your opinion that please do not disturb me, and we are very much clear enough. Okay, fine, please go ahead with your work. Yeah, if it could be somebody else's, like if some your one of your any of your friend in in normal other families, if you say this kind of statement, it depends upon the parents how they really take it. They may not like it.
Yeah. So
There's,
how do you communicate? How do you set healthy boundaries in a situation like that?
no, see, nowadays the generation really needs space. They really need space
No,
because
every generation needs space. Since we did not
every
understand.
generation. But
Not
nowadays,
nowadays.
youth has to be very clear with their parents. They should really talk very clearly to their parents. Yes,
But how does a person whose parents do not understand the concept of boundaries, how does a person like that communicate this?
No, that's very difficult. If some person is not understanding, like given an example, you are doing some, creative work, you don't want to get disturbed. You tell your mother, but sometime she wanted you to eat your food on right time. She wanted you to go to do some your normal course at right time. Then she will come and disturb you. She will not understand. The work you are doing is what important. So I think important thing is communication, and that communication, setting a boundary. Like if you are saying it to your family members, so they have their own concerns, you have your own concern. So you should look. I am doing a job which needs utter concentration and full of my energy will be concentrated, and I will need 1.5 hours. So that much time, even that you know that may be a dinner time, lunch time, eating time, tea time, whatever time. But please don't disturb me. This work is more important. If you break my flow, so I think to set the boundaries, tell the boundaries, communication is most important. We don't communicate, and sometimes even if you communicate, the other person take it wrongly.
So the
So
key
please,
is to be clear and
very
to be
clear,
respectful at the same time.
very clear communication. There should not be anything left out. If you leaves anything, even smallest thing, then they will get either offended or they will misunderstand.
Right. So now that we have discussed how a possible healthy boundary could be set, um, I think it's very important that each and every person learns how to communicate, learns how to, even older people who watch this may just be more mindful about what your child is trying to say. Um, you can also set your boundaries and communicate them to your children or whatever. Like I'm just like trying to say that there are just
one has to be flexible also. One has to be flexible also, Means one has to be flexible also, I want to say.
Even if you set your boundaries and somebody is saying, now my boundaries are getting affected, then these two boundaries should not get affected each other. So that is important.
yeah, some
That's what
some
what I
amount of
understood.
flexibility, some amount of communication, some
Yes.
amount of understanding. I think
Understood.
it's a mixture of all of that together.
Yes. No, so what I think she is trying to make a point is, I have set my boundaries, but being in a family, being or maybe I am saying that I have set my boundaries, you have set your boundaries. Does these two boundaries are getting clashed? Then what is the priority? That mindfulness, that rationalization, that understanding has to be there in the family. That okay, sometimes I sacrifice. Okay, I am getting this stuff, but I sacrifice. Your things are more important. So otherwise, sometimes setting up a boundary will create an adamancy that yes, I am adamant. My boundaries are my boundaries. My boundaries should not be affected. So this will create different kind of clashes. So I think while living together, you need to sometimes let go.
Yeah. So it's a mix of all of that. I agree. So little bit of understanding, little bit of flexibility, little bit of setting healthy boundaries, all of it, and I think that's what makes you human. So yeah, on that note,
And any note, you should not get offended. If somebody is communicating, you should not get offended. You should be like, calm, okay. Somebody is trying to make a point. You can counterpoint. You can, argue. You can defend. But you cannot make a statement that, yeah, your boundaries are wrong, my boundaries are correct. You should understand, communicate, again, talk, converse, and then create a proper atmosphere.
so that brings us to the end of this episode. I hope you liked listening to us discuss this, and as much as we liked creating it. So let us know, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah,
Bye.
share
Till then,
and subscribe.
Like, share, and comment.
bye
Bye.
bye.